Okay, we have sound now. Shabbat Shalom and welcome to the Second Samuel series. We are in Second Samuel chapter 15, and the title of today's lesson is A Humble Descent. So we're going to kind of give a brief overview, a recap, and then we'll jump right into the lesson. So leading up to this point, we have seen a lot of things. It kind of started off so high, and so many negative incidents have happened ever since the David and Bathsheba connection, if you will. And so last week we went over what was happening after Amnon was killed by his brother Absalom for the incident with his sister Tamar. And Absalom flees to Geshur to his grandfather on his maternal side and is essentially banished to Geshur because he is not retrieved by his father. So last week we see Joab go and use the wise one from Tekoa to convince David to bring back Absalom. Now, his mindset was military in a lot of ways. Like, you have the son, we know he's a killer. His feelings are hurt, and the people are talking, man, we have to do something. So David is essentially kind of tricked into bringing Absalom back. And when he brings him back, he's like, you know what? I can't see his face. I don't want to set a negative precedent. So he's like, let him go and live his life, within Israel. It creates a stirring. Absalom has a tantrum. He waits 2 years. We know he has this like 2-year thing happening. And he begins to literally throw a tantrum to see the king. When the king sees his son, he kisses him in a offering of peace or something. Like, nothing's really exchanged. And so this week we get to see the culmination of it all, how it all comes together, what Absalom's real heart is for his father and for Israel. We're going to kind of take our time and walk through it because this week there are a lot of moving parts. I know I say that often, but as we're digging in our word. We are grabbing and reclaiming culture. We're understanding how to engage with one another. What is good? What is bad? How to check out certain personalities of people, how to not be drawn away by other people's hearts and deceit, and to actually be able to discern what is best for Israel, to not get caught up in our own thoughts, but to trust Yah and follow him. So let's dive in. All right. As usual, we share the screen so you guys can read along with the narrative. All right, I have a brief little introduction, but it says it came to pass after this. So we talked about this whole after this. There's always things happening. There's always things going on. Like I said, moving parts to the text. So I want to give an introduction to kind of bring us in and put our minds in this space. You see, we often look at scripture and want to detach ourselves from what is happening. We sit on, the good guy side of it all, or we attach it to the negativity of, the westernized religious construct and what we learned or experienced in other groups or other places. But to sit now and put on the mind of Israel, to be the nation, to be the antagonist and the protagonist, the good and the bad, and to see how this directly reflects our hearts and our relationship with Abba Yah and with one another. So, in Israel, we are no stranger to leadership which is birthed out of a place of brokenness or discontentment. You can look around at the ministries that exist online, or the camps and their splits. You can look around at ministries that exist as far back as Rabbi Matthew, to One West, to GOCC, to IUIC, and we can see the same behaviors carried over from the westernized religious construct we call church. And they're brought to right now. I know you all remember First Baptist Church and Second Baptist Church. You remember Mount Zion on First Street and then Greater New Mount Zion on 4th Street. Each of these religious endeavors were brought into fruition by discontentment and jaded members of an original group. We may say, this is silly, right? But we still do it when we are called to be one in Hamashiach and as Hamashiach. Everyone is trying to gather to themselves a following, but many are using the shortcomings, either doctrinally or in personality, to win the hearts of a group of people, not realizing that we are all works in progress and need the collective unit known as community to help restore us, or better yet, actualize us to what Yah intends for us to be. Today in our First Samuel series, we're going to see what one disgruntled and rather seemingly justified individual can do to a nation. In looking at this historical account, I want to challenge all of you to not just look at ourselves as a hero in history, but to feel each person's hurt and see Yah's heart. Too often we fracture, splinter, regroup, and we don't realize that we are not helping the situation, but often making it worse. Furthermore, one person's trial and humbling experience could be a lesson about how we uphold someone else and maybe the reciprocity we may need in our season. Today, our cultural gems will be gathered into the box of ministries birthed out of bitterness and the humility of losing Yah's grace and how we still must pursue his face, worship, and wait for restoration. Let's get into it. All right. 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 1. And it came to pass after this that Absalom prepared him chariots and horses and 50 men to run before him. And Absalom rose up early and stood beside the gate. And it was so that when any man had a controversy or came to the king for judgment, then Absalom would call unto him. You see, the issue we talked about with these ministries birthed out of bitterness is that there's always somebody who feels like they can do something better. See, Absalom goes to the king and the king kisses Absalom. And after that encounter, Absalom's like, all right, I'm putting my plan into full effect. He understands something about the people. He understands something about how people think and how they maneuver. And he's been around long enough. He's in his 20s, long enough to discern what he thinks is best for Israel. Let's keep going and we'll kind of walk back the text so you get a full understanding of why and what's happening. And I'll pull out some Hebrew words just to kind of guide us as we go back through. So Absalom would call into the person and say, hey, where are you from? And the man would say, or the person would say, your servant, or I'm from one of the tribes of Israel. And Absalom would say unto him, okay, you see your matters, what you got going on. It's good and right. It's justified, man. But there's no man, appointed by the king to hear you. It's kind of grim, man. And Absalom would say, moreover, oh, if I was judge in this land, every person that has an issue or a suit or a cause could come to me and I would do him justice. You see, because Absalom wasn't some person that people didn't know. So he was seen because of people's mindsets and how we think about things as somebody who, man, that man, he's upright. He's down for his sister. He's down for his family. Even his father kissed him when he came back. So, he's a cool dude. Like there's no guile in him. Remember before he says, if something be found in me, then let the king kill me. He says this in private, right? And then when the king doesn't do anything to him, it justifies him. And it says, and it was so in verse 5, that when any man came nigh to him to do him obeisance, that he would put forth his hand. And no, man, don't bow to me, man. That ain't even like that. And he would take him and he would kiss him. And on this manner did Absalom to all Israel that came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. Absalom steals the hearts of the men of Israel. Absalom is not just stealing the heart of Israel from David, but Absalom is also parading as if he knows more than Yah. You see, Yah has anointed David. Yah has put the system in place. Yah has pardoned David. Yah hasn't even spoken in the last chapter. Yah is silent. So it seems that when Yah gets silent, then people feel like it's their space and their right to interject into that space. So Absalom sees this as an occasion to act. He is painting the picture that Yah is through with David in not so many words. King's not on his job. You know, he got his personal stuff going on. So Absalom believes that he can execute judgment in his own way because he's right. Absalom believes that he can take it into his own hands and kind of speed up the process leading into the next kingdom. My dad's old. He's not, thinking all right. And he got his personal stuff going on. Absalom is so arrogant that he believes he knows better than Yah. You see, the issue is not just with Absalom, though. It's with people. See, people want someone they can look up to. People want a picture of perfection, power, and peace, even if it's false. Many of you have left leaders, jumped ship, etc., all because someone wasn't doing what you believed or what you expected them to do. Interesting, because many say they follow leadership because they are anointed or Yah is with them, then leave when they think Yah is done, waiting for their Absalom, only to get caught up and cut off. Absalom takes chariots and horses and 50 men to run before him. See, Absalom's all about putting on the show. So many leaders in Israel are all about the outward things, all about giving you the show, but not really the word, drawing on your disgruntledness and showing you what it would look like if you followed them. This means with the chariots that Absalom did not want chariots for speed. He had men running before him, right? He wanted to make an impressive procession. He wanted to show what he had and what he could give in the picture of might and in power to Israel. See, Absalom was a good politician. He was like, oh, I can win the people. I see it. I know what they like. I know what appeals to me. And remember, he was beautiful from head to toe. People often look on the outward. When Samuel went to anoint King David and he looked around and he's looking at all of David's brothers and he says, see, man looks on the outside. Yah looks at the heart. See, we are easily dissuaded away from truth because of how somebody presents on the outside. They present on the outside with zeets, and they present on the outside with words, and we don't get to see any of their perfecting process, which leads us to believe that they have it all worked out. Absalom, unlike his father, wanted to put on a show of might. You see, David hamstrung the horses to show that Yahuwah was the strength. Absalom brings out the horses to show that he will be the strength of Israel. See, Absalom wanted to be a judge like Samuel. You remember Samuel, the faithful judge from Yah? The one who anointed Absalom's father. But he didn't know that there was steps to being a judge. See, you had to be called to be a judge. You couldn't just look on something and think you could do a better job. The reason why Yah chooses whom he chooses is because he knows he can speak to their heart. He doesn't think that man is perfect, but that he can perfect any man that's yielded unto him. So when that man deviates, Yah knows I can get that man back on track. But if a person feels like they're right and justified, then they won't hear when Yah pricks their heart and say, hey, man, you're wrong. No, I can't be wrong. This must be just my own guilt. This is not Yah speaking to me. So has a strong inability to really hear and do the job of judge for Israel because his heart is not inclined to Yah. You see, Absalom is not one that hears causes. Now, you may disagree with this, but Absalom was supposed to hear Amnon. Absalom was supposed to bring, if he was a righteous one, of one who loves justice, would have brought that cause before Israel. He tells his sisters, be quiet, that's your brother. I'm going to take care of it. Right? And then when he sees Amnon walking around, it says that he didn't even say a word to him. Doesn't seem like somebody who's executing judgment. He couldn't even execute judgment in his own space. Now that he's a little bit older, he feels like, you know what? I let that moment slip, but I won't do it again. So he's gathering or making a ministry based upon his own traumatic experiences. Whenever anyone who had a lawsuit came to the king for a decision. So this is what happens with Absalom. Let's just get into his mind for a second about what he feels about leadership. And we have to look at ourselves and weigh ourselves on the balance in the same way. So he says in the verse, if any man had a controversy. In the Hebrew, the word for controversy or a suit is reeve. And I'm going to make sure find your word. See, thy matters are good and right, and being deputed of the king. There we go. Had a controversy. Here's the word. Resh yod bet. Resh yod bet. And it means a strife or dispute. Now, the word here is not just a strife or dispute or a quarrel, but the actual picture of it is a strife or something that was to be handled by the head of a tribe. So resh bet is your 2-letter root, resh here and bet. And resh bet is a rab, is the head of a tribe who hears all cases, trials, conflicts, and contests. This individual would be the representative of the whole tribe. And in the case of a king, he was seen as the representative who was a decision maker when a person went to a lower court, like a tribal court, and something wasn't decided, then it would come to the king, and the king would then judge in that manner. This person was abundant in authority. So with Absalom, he saw and understood, because he's a Hebrew, he lives in the culture, he's an Israelite. He knows and has seen judgment happen. He's seen his dad pass judgment. He's also seen Yah pass judgment. And he's like, see, this, we don't have a Rav. We don't have this person who is looking at cases and caring about the individual man. So he seeks to become the tribal head while his father is still living. See, ancient kings were more than just the heads of the government. They were the supreme court of their kingdom. If someone believed that a local court did not give them justice, they appealed to the court of the king, where the king or representative of the king heard the case. So he's operating within the function. We have to know this about the adversary. See, the adversary doesn't operate outside of Yah's function. That's not a counterfeit. A counterfeit is something that's very similar to, very close to the original thing. So he takes a function that already exists in Israel and a spot that should be in Israel, right? And wants to operate in that particular function. The next thing he says is, your case is good and right, but there's no deputy, there's no Rav of the king to hear you. Absalom stirred up dissatisfaction with David and the government that he had set up and campaigned against him, promising to provide justice where King David could not. He says, oh, that I would be made judge. You see, Absalom had a bone to pick with his father for failing to hear the cause of Tamar, not doing anything about Amnon. Add to that how he was left in Geshur and was only called back to be further rejected. He was dissatisfied with how things were going, and he feels like now he can do a better job. If I were judge, I would do justice. Even after Amnon is dead, Absalom doesn't feel like justice has been served. He has this insatiable thing happening inside of him. He doesn't just want Amnon's head, he wants his father's now too. See, Absalom thinks that he is blameless. He doesn't see any fault in his actions. He doesn't understand that he's a murderer in Israel. And he is so self-absorbed that he has begun to believe his own hype. It's only a matter of time after we start pointing out the faults in leadership that we will seek their head and position as well. Absalom says, if I were judge, I would do justice. This statement proves that Absalom does not believe that justice has been served, and it's a direct attack on his father. So what does he do? What does Absalom go on to do? He gets the people and he starts working a little bit at a time. So he's patient. We know that about him. He's patient, stealthy, cunning, and he's very smart. Not a dumb guy. So whenever people came and bowed down, remember that he brought them up. For we know of Absalom that he really didn't consider himself to be a man of the people. He has his own agenda. He's not like this person that's like, oh, I'm for the people. I'm for the people. No, he has this thing working in the back of his head, and the people are a means to his end. He knew he was better looking. He was well connected. He was well off. And he had natural political instincts because he grows up in a royal family. He created an image that he was for the people. See, in Israel, we're way too enthralled with the outward parts of people. Oh, that person's beautiful. Oh, what do they have on? Oh, what bracelet is that you're wearing? Oh, where'd you get your head wrap, sis? Oh, what is this? Can we wear scarves? Can we wear skirts? Do we wear pants? And we ask all these questions because we're so concerned with what people are doing on the outside. And then we neglect and abandon what we're supposed to be doing on the inside. See, we don't watch videos. Most people are not even here to hear what has to be said. If I'm not on here talking about stuff that is topical and we're going through the Bible, people don't even want to watch. They're like, oh, still in 2 Samuel. Can you do a video about menstruation? Can you do a video about, can we pierce our ears and can we get a nose ring? Can you do a video? We don't care about the weightier matters of the heart. We look at the outside. We want to see a person that's, girl, she was singing. Oh, yeah. And then she came and she had on this dress. Girl, where you get that dress from? Where is that from? And our minds are so taken off into the areas of the outward parts. See, Absalom knew this about Israel. We get caught up in the outside and we're not concerned with the redemption and the reformation of the inner man. See, David was in a place of trying to heal. And in the process of David trying to heal, Absalom was raising up to take his place. He wasn't in the business of restoration like Yah, who hasn't cast Israel aside, who hasn't cast his leader aside. He's trying to figure out a way to use David's pain and his shortcomings as an opportunity to gain a position of leadership. We want to see perfection in man instead of seeking wholeness. See, we don't like broken things. We don't like it. We don't like people who disappoint us because they're not perfect. We don't like people who go through things. We don't like people whose marriages are not perfect and whose families are not perfect. We don't like those things. We don't like when people have issues because, see, we want perfection so that we can, in a way, think that the world is in a good and perfect place. See, Yah loves the broken. Yah is near to the brokenhearted, not those who want to stay broken, but those who experience brokenness and stumble. He's there to lift them up and put them back on the right track. And that's supposed to be our job as a nation, not to see their fallenness as an occasion to set up our own kingdoms. We say we hate people that look down on us, but we're constantly placing people above us. We constantly do it. So then we're always surprised when somebody's not perfect or when people hit rough patches like we don't. But we spend so much time looking at other people that we never work on ourselves. So Absalom goes on and he steals the hearts of the men of Israel. See, his cunning campaign worked. He became popular and became more trusted than David. See, we do that. If somebody's better than somebody else, we'll take them, not checking to see if that person is actually in alignment with Yah. Well, they look better than this person. And we go from person to person to person to person to person, never checking to see if Yah is in the midst of it. See, Absalom knew exactly how to steal the people's hearts. And a lot of the cunning and crafty individuals in our nation currently know exactly how to do that as well. He carefully cultivated an exciting and enticing image. He got it all together. He had horses, he had men to run before him. He worked hard. He wasn't lazy. So he rose up early to meet people as they were going up to see the king. He ran interference. He knew where to position himself beside the way of the gate. See, he had thought it all through. You think that these people just raise up and y'all's like, oh yeah, y'all told me. Now check that. Check where they come from. Check their trauma. Ask the questions. People hate to hear about the brokenness and they want us to stop talking. But if you don't talk about it, then you may find yourself leading and doing things from an unpure and impure place. He looked for troubled people. See, he pretended to be perfect because he knows people need to see somebody better than them. That's what you guys like. So he pretended to be perfect. He pretended to be right. Like he had got all his problems together. I went out to Gesher. I've sat back. I made it right with the king. I'm good, man. Hear me out. Right. And he went to anyone who had an issue. He banded with the broken and discontent of the city, those who had issues and issues. He took personal interest in the troubled person, asking questions, man, where you from? What you do? Where you going? Isn't that like the adversary, though, to sit in the way as we're trying to reach Yah and to draw us off course, to say, hey, where you going, man? Oh, I got something over here that's better than that. Come with me. No. Yah is busy. You see, Yah is running the whole world. You think Yah is thinking about you? Yah cares about your tears. You think Yah cares about your marriage? See, he set me up. That's why he put me here. So I could tell you about what he says and what you should do and follow me. Look, I'm good. Like, I got chariots. I'm blessed. The king is behind me. I got people behind me. I got power and influence right with me. And you find yourself off the path where you should have sought the king. Because what you would have found is somebody that had experience and didn't see that they were perfect and was going to listen and be tenderhearted toward your issues versus having a bone to pick. It says that he sympathized with the person. It's very interesting. Empathy and sympathy are two different things. Like he pitied them, like, oh, nobody to hear you. Man, your cause is good. See, everybody's cause is not good. Everything that everybody brings before Yah, everything that we bring before Yah is not good. See, sometimes somebody should tell you, check yourself before you bring that. The reason why you're not getting the answer to the problem is because you're the problem and you don't want to solve you. You want to fix somebody else. See, he's like, oh, man, your claim is right. Because you know what the king probably did when people came? Go back and restore unto your brother what is his. Or go back and make amends before you come to me with that issue. Or you're not right. See, people want to be justified so that they can do what they want to do. But David, even in his imperfection, uses the law and he stands by his word. Now check this. Absalom never attacked David directly. He said, there's no deputy of the king. He's not saying, there's something wrong with the king. See, he portrayed the image that the king needed more people. He needed more help to hear because he was busy attending to his own drama. But in the end, he left the person more troubled than they began. Oh man, there's nobody here. So then the person is in an uncomfortable place. Like, I don't have anybody to listen to. I don't have anybody to talk to about my relationship. I don't have anybody to judge on this. I don't have anybody to say anything about that. And they're left in this place of, I have nobody. Never once pointing the person back to Yah and his law, because that was the only job of the judge and the king in the first place. I'll hear and I will do justice. No, Yah does justice. The only justice we do is to point someone to the just and rightness in Yah's law. It's not to do and put people in a place and tell them about our dreams and what we prophesy and what we think. The only prophecy is that which has been revealed in the word and how it applies to us in our position right now. Without directly attacking King David, Absalom promises that he's going to do better. People who know what Absalom did to Amnon agreed and would see him as one who wouldn't be letting things slide. People want leadership so that they can be the police until they start looking into their mess. See, we like people who say, yeah, you better get your wives in check. These husbands better be there for their, and we like when they say, oh, you better get your, we like that kind of stuff. Why? Because it doesn't cause us to focus on us. We don't like leaders who say, introspect, look at you, fix you, change your lens, refocus your mind, change your heart. And maybe all the things that you see will disappear because you're the nucleus to all those problems. Or once all those things are fixed, then Yah can judge righteously because, hey, sis, you're not blameless. See, people want righteousness, but they want it to push other people into righteousness, and they don't want to be pushed themselves. We don't care about our leaders in their personal lives or their trials. We don't care about how they feel or what they may be going through. See, that's not on the menu. We want to be somewhere and with someone who can give us what we think we want and allow us to avoid the reality of having to look deep into ourselves and to do the actual work of change. We like the music, we like the prophetic talk, but we ignore the prophecy that Yah has spoken concerning the inward parts of man. We keep looking for better, but we can't better ourselves. See, Absalom's clever approach made him able to subvert and divide the kingdom without saying anything specific that could condemn him. So many times that's the case. It's not that I'm saying anything wrong. I'm just like, yeah, maybe you was taught wrong about head wraps. Oh, maybe I know you was listening to that before, but I don't know if that person's right about that. And so anybody who's building something doesn't have to build it on the discrepancies of somebody else. Build it on the righteousness of Torah. Build it on further revelation. Build it on growth. Build it on all those things. Tell the positive when you tell the negative. See, people don't do that because they see it as an occasion to tear down and to separate. We look at the little idiosyncrasies that everybody has and we magnify those to gather people into ourselves. David, as we know, is Israel's greatest king. But Israel became dissatisfied, as we can see. And because of that, instead of seeking Yah and uplifting him and causing him to get back on track, because that is what we do as a nation for all of our leaders, they let an immoral individual steal their hearts. And there's a lot of reasons why this may have happened. You see, David was getting older. I don't know if you know this, but the incident with David and Bathsheba took place when David was 58 years old. David only lived 70 years. Now, they didn't necessarily know how long he was going to live standing in this moment, but we know this. We know Absalom's in his 20s, late 20s when this is all taking place. So all of the atrocities we're going to see happen in the last 12 years of David's life. He follows Yah in the beginning, and there's great growth and great ascension. And it seems like David has reached his end in man's eyes. David's sins diminish his standing in the sight of the people. You don't want to admit it, but many of you would not have stood by David. You would not have. Just hearing the story of what happened with Bathsheba and then what happened with his daughter and what happened with his son. See, many of you would have jumped ship. You would have called him to step down as king according to what you felt was right. Because looking at the situation, you'd have said, hey, man, Yah is not with you anymore. Step down, go somewhere, pray, get your stuff together, but you can't lead Israel anymore. See, many of you have done this to your leaders. Many of you have said, you're not fit, you're not called. You only praise David now because you know the full story. Many of you have left and gone astray from truly anointed individuals because you made a judgment on that person at their lowest. I pray Yah puts everyone to shame who has given up on those who are truly trying to serve Yah and had rough times. I pray that he also teaches us the true function of community with those and ourselves who are not to stop pursuing Yah even when life gets in the way. So do we die in our sin? Do we not pursue Yah? Does everything we do after we have been at our lowest now is nothing? It's nothing because of that thing? Or is that a testament to what Yah can do with anyone at any time? I pray in the doubting of man, Yah is exalted. And when the story is fully conveyed, that he gets all the glory. See, many of us like the change. We like the new. So when we see somebody fall, we don't go to help them fall. We're waiting to see what's next. Well, who's next? Well, that person's done. What does Yah have next? And it could just be the adversary rising up the next person to take your wicked heart and draw and take it astray and take it off of Yah's focus, because you were focusing too close on the man and not on the true king. See, David had to. Everything that happened with David was a part of him entering into his suffering, the fellowship of his suffering, as it says in Philippians chapter 3, which we're going to look at. See, each of us are called to that. We have to go into suffering. Now, there's two ways to go into, and that's talked about in scripture too. It's one thing to suffer for your own stuff, but it's another thing to suffer for righteousness' sake. But in both, when we are redeemed, Yah gets the glory. Let's look at Philippians chapter 3. I'm going to start from the beginning because I think it's a very good passage to look at. I'll read it straight through. Finally, my brethren, rejoice in Yahuwah. To write the same things to you, to me indeed is not grievous, but for you it is safe. Beware of dogs, beware of evil workers, beware of the concision. For we are the circumcision which worship Yah in the spirit and rejoice in Yahushua HaMashiach, and have no confidence in the flesh. Though I might also have confidence in the flesh, right? Paul jumps in, he explains some things. If any other man thinketh that he hath wherefore he might trust in the flesh, I more. Circumcised the 8th day, of the stock of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews, as touching the law, a Pharisee, which is concerning zeal, persecuting the church, persecuting the assembly, touching the righteousness which is in the law, blameless. But what things were gained to me, those I counted loss for Hamashiach. Yea, doubtless, and I count all things but loss for the excellency of the knowledge of Yahushua HaMashiach, my master, from whom I have suffered the loss of all things, and do count them but dung, that I may win Hamashiach, and be found in him, not having my own righteousness, which is of the law, but that which is through the faith of Hamashiach, the righteousness which is of Yahuwah by faith, that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his suffering. See, David had gained all things that were even humanly possible. He heard from Yah. He secured Israel. He had done it all. And in his flesh, which he is not marveling in at all, he has stumbled. And even in that has the fellowship of suffering. He's going to suffer things that, when we get to the end, are directly related to the suffering and even ascension of the Messiah. His obedience, even in his suffering, still links him to the one true righteous king. Let's continue. It says that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being made conformable unto his death, if by any means I might attain unto the resurrection of the dead. Not as though I had already attained, either were already perfect, but I follow after, if that I may apprehend that for which also I am apprehended of Yahushua HaMashiach. He said, I'm trying to get that which first grabbed me. That thing grabbed me, and now I have to pursue after it. He says, forget, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, forgetting those things in the past, and reaching forth unto those things which are before. I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of Elohim and Yahushua HaMashiach. Let us therefore, as many as be perfect, be thus minded. And if in anything ye be otherwise minded, Yah shall reveal it even this unto you. So if you're not in the perfect place, then pray that Yah reveals to you where you're not. Nevertheless, whereto we have already attained, let us walk by the same rule. Let us mind the same thing. Brethren, be followers together of me, and mark them which walk so as ye of us, for example. So he's like, you see what I'm doing? Find others who are doing the same thing. Find others operating in the same humility. Find others who are pressing toward the same mark, and use our pressing as an example. For many walk, of whom I have told you often, and now tell you even weeping, that they are the enemies of the cross of Hamashiach, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, and whose glory is in their shame, who mind earthly things. For our conversation is in Shamayim, from whence also we look for the Savior, the Master, Yahushua HaMashiach, who shall change our vile body, that it may be fashioned like unto his glorious body, according to the working whereby he is able even to subdue all things unto himself, including, I'm adding this part, including us. See, David is entering into the fellowship of suffering, cannot attain, cannot have, cannot reach any place of glorifying Yah while people still think we're perfect. We have to be cut down. That has to be removed from people's eyes so that they can walk alongside us. All right, let's get back into it. That foundation has to be laid because it's everything. It's everything for later when we see these parallels that are so beautiful in Hamashiach. All right, so, and it came to pass. It's after he seals the hearts of the people, verse 7. And it came to pass after 40 years. Now, this is not 40 years that are between David and Absalom. It's not that Absalom was working out this plan for 40 years. What this passage tells us is there's coming a time where David is now entering into his renewal and his testing. This 40-year period. See, David has spanned 58 years since of life, but in leadership, he's nearing the end of his leadership and ruling and his life essentially in Israel. And Yah is taking him through one more test. So it's coming to pass at the time of David's testing that Absalom says unto the king. So this is the beginning of the test. This is when it's beginning to start. And we'll look a little bit more into the into what this 40 is, because it's going to show up in the text again. And it came to pass after 40 years that Absalom said unto the king, he's coming to David after all this underhanded stuff, right? He's going to come to David. See, he's bold. He's bold. I pray thee, let me go and pay my vow, which I vowed unto Yahuwah in Hebron. For your servant vowed a vow when I abode at Geshur in Syria, saying, if Yahuwah shall bring me again indeed to Jerusalem, then I will serve Yahuwah. And the king said unto him, go in shalom. So he arose and went to Hebron. But Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, as soon as ye hear the sound of the trumpet, then ye shall say, Absalom reigneth in Hebron. He said, let me go down so I can pay a vow to Yahuwah. See, he had one thing working in his mind, and Joab had one thing working in his mind, and David had another. See, that whole time where Joab was right, Absalom was like, if I ever get back in Israel, I'm taking that kingdom. My father will never rule in Israel. Yah, look at praying. Yah, if you ever let me back in, then that's my sign that you told me to do exactly what I'm going to do. Praying wickedly. And then Joab goes to the wise one of Tekoa, convinces her to trick David into bringing Absalom back home. See, that's the adversary. See how the adversary can work on both ends? You can pray something, and Yah can use people who are operating in their carnal mind to then answer that prayer. Absalom had prayed to Yah, but his prayer was amiss. So the adversary was like, oh, here come one of the prayers that somebody ain't supposed to be praying. Let me dial in. Oh, you want to what? Oh, you want to get David? I've been trying to get him for a minute. This is perfect. Okay. Then you got everybody all mad about the issue with Tamar and Amnon. So you're like, oh, and Joab, he's, okay, let me I guess squeeze in here just like this. And you have David who didn't feel it. He was not feeling Yah speak to him about bringing Absalom back. He wasn't. So he goes on and is tricked essentially into bringing Absalom back. And Absalom sees David bringing him back as a prayer answer. He's like, oh, I vowed a vow. I said, yeah, I'm a whatever Absalom was doing, whether it was a Nazarite vow, which is often people think he was because he grew his hair, right? Whatever it was, he was doing over in Geshurun in 3 years. He was like, I'm a fast, I'm a pray, I'm a live upright, because if Yah lets me back in, I'm taking it. And David was like, he's banished. The proper thing is for him to be banished. Everybody else couldn't sit with that. They didn't like that. They're like, hey, go talk to him. Go do something about it. As soon as he talks to him and brings him back in, that dude starts wreaking havoc because he feels like Yah has said he was blameless. Yah, if I'm wrong, don't ever let me see Israel again. You know what people do. And then he comes back in and he's like, oh, I'm back here. Although I'm justified, then I got to work out my promise to Yah. That's where his mind was. That's where his mind was. See, Absalom committed treason under the guise of worship. He knew that an appearance of spirituality could work in his favor. People do that. Oh, I pray 3 times a day. I'm fasting. I'm doing telling stuff that the scriptures say they're not supposed to tell people they're doing in the first place. I'm doing all this. Oh, no, man, I don't do that. No. And putting on what they believe is spirituality. I pray. Remember when I told you if I had something wrong with me, the king would kill me? See, you didn't kill me. And you're working all these things, not knowing that people are people, right? And Yah is Yah. So you feel like you're justified because there's people rallying behind you. It's possible, perhaps likely, that Absalom did all this feeling spiritual and he thought it was in Yahuwah's will. See, men in Absalom's place often deceive themselves with words like, yeah, we need new leadership. Thank you for raising me up for such a time as this. Guide me and bless me, oh Yah, as I endeavor to do what is best for your people. I've heard it. I've definitely heard it, right? Check yourself. And if you started following somebody who started off like this, leave, because Yah is not with them. He's not with them. Yah does not set up things out of bitterness and brokenness and wickedness and seeking to take people's lives. That's not of Yah. See, divisive people never see themselves as divisive. Oh, this is me. My name is Huldah and I'm divisive. Like, who does that? Nobody does that. Nobody introduces themselves as sneaky and, trifling. Nobody sees it because they feel like they're justified in being that way. And they don't see their ways as that way. They see themselves as righteous. They see themselves as crusaders for Yahuwah's righteous cause, and often believe or hope Yahuwah's hand is upon them because ain't nobody killed them yet because they can't do anything about it. We have to sit back and take the lashings of the wicked. We do. That's part of us walking in the same suffering as Hamashiach. This is especially a problem when many who will only believe a person is divisive if they admit it. So you wait like, well, they ain't apologized yet. You wait for a person to apologize and say, oh, yeah, broke me down and he told me that I should have never did that to Huldah. No, that's not going to happen because they didn't start off following Yah and then go crooked. They were crooked when they told you they were following Yah and doing what they're doing. You waiting for it is like holding your breath and hoping not to pass out. The end is not coming. They don't see it. They can't understand it. They will continue to operate as if they are righteous. They will continue to gather people to them. They'll hope that time passes on and people forget what happened. They will. They'll hope that we'll just keep watching their videos on YouTube and their channel will just stay up. They should be deleted. See, I've learned something about praying and Yah. And I think I was a little afraid of this before because we don't often see real wickedness, not when we are also operating in darkness and wickedness. See, we don't want to do this. But David in Psalm 55, in Psalm 31, in Psalm 41, in Psalm 42, in Psalm 70 and 71, in Psalm 143, in Psalm 144, in Psalm 61 through 63, in Psalm 4, in Psalm 5, in Psalm 6, in Psalm 11, and in Psalm 19. Praise Yah. But in a lot of these Psalms, he hoped that these people would go down in the grave for what they did. Because he knew that it wasn't just about him. He wasn't like, oh, it's just about me. No. What they're doing to me is hurting Israel. See, we're afraid of that because we're afraid of the same judgment coming upon us, because there are things that we are unrepentant often for. But when we get right with Yah and we give our hearts over to Yah, then we would rather die for our sins so that those who are drawing Israel astray can die also. Strip them of this life, he says. He said, he has one verse where he says, slap them so hard with your mighty hand that their teeth come out. Like, it's literally in the text. He doesn't hold back because what they are doing is destructive. And when we as leadership let people like that slide, when we let individuals who come up thinking and causing occasion to come after one person in order to smite that person so that the sheep scatter so they can be gathered unto wolves and devoured, we do a disservice. So we let the Malkas and the Elias of the world stay on YouTube with their BS. We let the Jedias of the world stay up because those individuals, we don't want to come after them because we don't want, well, I don't want to deal with, no, you don't care. I don't care. When people do things and go after individuals in order to gather people to themselves and yet still sit in their wickedness and unrighteousness, Yah says, call it out. He says, say something, do something, because then my children follow after these people. And they don't really understand what's happening. They don't understand what's going on in the middle. So they feel torn. Don't feel torn. You're better off not following me or any of them and following Yah and staying right with Yah than going after the devils in Israel. And there's more than just them. There's more than just them. I haven't had personal experiences with the others, so I can't say anything. There's more than just them. You're better shutting it off. Turn off YouTube. Turn off everybody. Don't let the demon sing to you. Don't let the demon prophesy to you. Don't let the demon speak in Hebrew to you. You're letting them into your home and into your heart and into your children, into your families. And you wonder why you're not operating in the truth and the gifts of Yah, because you're being dissuaded and you're having your heart turned by individuals who don't love Yah. They don't love Yah. They don't seek righteousness. They don't seek justice, because if you really sought justice and if you really felt somebody was a witch or wrong in Israel, kill them. Do something about it. Stand up. Come with facts. Do something. Don't take the videos down. Don't private them. No. When Yah says to say something, you say it and you stand bold on it. That's not what you do. No, that's absolutely not. What you should do, though, is try them, because that's what scripture says. You try them. And then if you try them, what you'll see is that you may be off, that you may have wickedness in your heart, that you may be following after familiar spirits, that you may be a witch or a warlock, that you may be a thief and a robber. That's what you will find out. You'll find out that you are serving Yah amiss and serving and establishing ministry out of jealousy, envy, strife, and brokenness, which will end you all up in the pit. David said, no, take them down, because they are establishing false justice and false righteousness in Israel, and they are tearing the people apart. They are further dividing. It's important. I know that'll be sound bitten. It's okay. Let's keep going. So then David tells Absalom, go in peace. Often we let people go in peace because we're waiting. We're waiting, as we should wait for Yah. Because you see, when the sword comes to one, it comes to all. When it comes to one, it comes to all. But David saw them as like, well, maybe they are right. You know, we start getting our own head. Well, maybe, yeah, there is some stuff going on. I'm not perfect and I'm not upright. He's going to serve Yah. How can I tell a person they can't serve Yah? Because see, David trusted something that we're learning. I know I am learning to trust Yah. And is that when a person says they're serving Yah, even if it seems like they are, just keep watching. Just keep watching. So let's go on in the text. So Absalom then has 200 men, right? He has spies go out. The spies go out. These spies in the text where he says that he sent them, and it says that, Absalom is now reigning in Hebron. He says, go out and tell them this. Sent spies throughout Israel, verse 10. And as soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then you say, Absalom reigneth in Hebron. And with Absalom went 200 men out of Jerusalem that were called, and they went in their simplicity, and they knew not anything. So the 200 men that went with him were just like, oh, okay, I'm rolling up with Absalom. He's like, hey, I'm going up to, go worship beyond Hebron. Roll with me. He didn't tell them that he had stuff going on. He didn't tell them that he had this little secret plan. They didn't know. They were just like, oh, yeah, when people go up to worship, some people walk with them. It's cool. When people go up to do new things and it seems like a good work, you're exposing unrighteousness in Israel. Yeah, I'm with that, man, because I see a lot of stuff and I knew something. You see, they just go because they don't think that there's all these other things, and they think that the person is right. Because anybody who stands in the seat to expose somebody else's unrighteousness, yeah, they must believe they're pretty righteous. I would think so too. I'd be like, man, that person is blameless because I ain't doing it. I like to see the end result. I like to wait and see what Yah is going to do with people. I like to let him try the heart of man, right? Knowing it's deceitfully wicked, but that he may have the reins and may be able to draw that person back into repentance and restoration in Israel. See, we are people of restoration. Where's the restoration in it all? When people divide, when do they go back? No, they just start bickering back and forth. When do we go back and say, okay, it's been a while, and yeah, I know I came for you, but where are you right now? You still in your disobedience? You still doing the same things? Or are you better? Let's restore you unto Israel. I tore you down. Let me build you back up. Where are those people? Where are they? Where are they? Because it doesn't seem like it. It just seems like you get greater fellowship and IUIC2 and blue IUIC and COCC, and it just begins to splinter into all these different directions where everybody sets up a new ministry and says, oh, come over here, we're doing better, we're better over here. No, you're better at hiding, and Yah's going to expose that too. All right, so Absalom sends men, he says spies. The Hebrew word there for the spies is a slanderer. He sends a slanderer to carry a message secretly throughout Israel. According to the book of Proverbs, this type of behavior is what Yah hates. Why, when Yah says he hates something, do we as humans always turn and say, no, are you sure you hate that? Are you sure you don't like that thing? Are you sure that's something that you don't like? You hate pork, you hate homosexuality, you hate discord amongst the brethren, but I'm gonna do what Yah hates, but I don't want you to hate me, Yah. How are we not hated when we do what Yah hates? So according to the book of Proverbs, he hates this type of behavior. It doesn't necessitate a qualifier. And then why do you hate it? I hate it because I hate it, and I see what it does to my people. It doesn't say Yah only hates it when it's about people we like, right? It's like, oh, you didn't like that person. Oh, it's definitely okay to sow discord amongst the brethren. Then, oh, that person hurts your feelings. Oh, it's definitely okay to sow discord amongst Israel and to run swift to bear negative messages. That is so okay. I get it. Your feelings are hurt. You get a pass. That is definitely not what Yah is saying. It's not. Yah hates it because it divides his nation. He doesn't look at us as individuals. So when you think you're doing something to one person, you need to check and see if you're doing it to everyone when you do it. Make sure that it's definitely Yah telling you to do it. See, because Hasatan is the author of confusion. Hasatan is the divider of the nation. Yah is seeking to bring the people together. We saw it with David. He doesn't kill David because he is not trying to divide Israel. He's going to chastise David, but he doesn't kill him because it would be a direct division amongst Israel. It would cause problems with the nation, not with the man. Not that the man is the nation, but he knows the hearts of the people and he knows the hearts of his servants. Y'all got to be careful. We have to be careful. In Proverbs chapter 6, 16 through 19, let's look at it. Let's look at what Yah says. We've heard this so many times, but it's like one of the hardest things for us to get through our heads. It really is. It really is. Because all of us, nobody is exempt. All of us have seen things that we didn't think were right with people. I've seen things that I didn't think were right with people. I didn't say anything because I trust Yah. I'm like, okay, yeah, if they're yours, let me just be here and support. If they're yours and they're traumatized and they have to come here and live here and be here and we have to deal with it and we can, okay, that's fine. Yeah, when they start showing things that may make you feel uncomfortable around your family, around your kids, you might have to do some things. You might have to be like, we have to part ways, but you don't have to go, and I saw while this person was here, they did this, and you tell all their business. I still won't. I'm only going to refer to things that people have already said themselves. I don't have anybody's personal business to tell, because I understand that if I start, right, nipping and telling what people have confided in me about and showing messages and doing things, it'll freak Israel out. How about that? So what do? Go to Yah in prayer. Okay, yeah, I see. Because see, the adversary wants the tit for tat. I'm doing a study right now, just a sidebar, on the gifts of the Spirit. People have asked me about this for a while, and it's been something that I've kind of put off and dibbled and dabbled in, but Yah's had me in this space. And one of the things that Yah showed me is that the adversary doesn't want unity, because in unity, that's when we are able to express and operate in our gifts. The reason why we don't see that, well, why are people not waking up? Why is my division in Israel? Division. Why is the world terrible? Why division in Israel? Why don't we see healing? Division in Israel. Why don't we see nations being spoken to? Division in Israel. Why don't we see, why aren't the nations talking about who we are? Division in Israel. Why would Yah put on the platform one of the most divided people I have ever seen in my life? That is crazy. You can get more Baptists together than you can get Israelites together. It is insane. The division is a ploy of the adversary to keep us ineffective. Yah does not have to let us out of captivity at 400 years if you restart the clock by being divided. That's the whole thing. The persecution was supposed to draw you together. So now we have added tribulation to go through to be made echad. We have to be echad. As Yah is one Ruach, one spirit operating in all of us, how can we all be doing something different? One person is saying, I know I see your Ruach and Yah's telling me to rock with you. And the other person is like, don't rock with that person. They got the spirit of the devil. How can we follow Yah? We don't even know if we believe what people are saying when they talk to us. So we watch 20 different videos and walk away just as confused as when we started. We are so divided as a people. We got to listen to 18 different messages to try to piece together a message, because nobody's saying the same thing. The message to Israel right now is become one, so I can pour out the gifts of the bridegroom onto the nation so that they can see your brilliance. But no, we want to do this. Verse 16. These 6 things does Yahuwah hate. That means he hates all of them. All of them. Yea, 7 are an abomination. The last one is an abomination. That's bigger than hate. You cut off for that. Okay. First one, a proud look. Second one, a lying tongue. He hates lying. So you tell me Yah told you to lie to get his message across? He hates you, and he hates your lying tongue. Third, hands that shed innocent blood, people that kill people innocently. Fourth, a heart that devises wicked imagination. Somebody just sit around and think of some jacked up stuff to do. You can't let it go. You're just looping through your own trauma. He hates that. He hates it. Feet that are swift in running to mischief. People that are always running from place to place. Oh, what this person said. Girl, did you hear what this said? Somebody made a video about you. Somebody said this. Did it? Hate. I hate it. Oh, girl, I'm not gonna post something. But did you hear that thing? This. I was talking to hate it. Separate. He hates it. Okay. A false witness. Number 6, a false witness that speaketh lies. You come up as a witness. I know. I don't necessarily agree with old girl said, but I think this is Yah moving in the spirit to have me say something now too. Really? A false witness that speaketh lies. You're witnessing to something and you're using your fractured truth to then aid in somebody else's wickedness. Hates it. And 7, and we all need to check ourselves on this. And if you ever have been this person, check yourself today. And he or she that soweth discord among the brethren. That means that we have reached a place of harmony, right? And then you come in with an off note, and now you have everybody turning and focusing on you and turn them away from focusing on Yah. Abomination. It's an abomination. Now let it be known that Yah hates behavior that divides a nation and chastises those who are his. So let's say you've been this person and Yah's not chastising you. You just things just seem to be going better. You've been given over to a reprobate mind, and you will open up your eyes in hell. That's pretty much it. Yah chastises those he loves. So if you've been this person and Yah has dealt with you in your heart, then hallelujah. But if you've been this person and are still operating in obstinance after reading and hearing the word, he said, those who turn away their ear from hearing my law, their prayers are an abomination. You ain't prayed since you start doing this. You wonder why Yah's not listening? Or if you are being blessed, it's because the devil's blessing you to keep you slick on the path straight to hell. Check yourself. There is none who are called by Yahuwah and sin and who don't experience discipline. But Yah is not like man who seeks to see people forever broken by their sin. Yah is a Yah of restoration who seeks to see individuals who are chastised and rebuilt so that they can serve him. We need to stop forcing people to live in broken places just because we have not healed from what they have done, and they are already chastised and restored. How do we know when a person has reached that point? The scripture says that they will bring or bear fruit worthy of repentance. In our story, we haven't seen restitution from Absalom or David in a lot of ways for the incident pertaining to Tamar. It seemed to be a situation that still hasn't been fully handled, and the pleasantries and formalities are allowing a situation to fester in ways that we cannot truly fathom. And it only gets worse. We're going to finish today. So if you have to watch this in 2-3 parts, I recommend you do. I recommend you do. Let's go back to 2 Samuel chapter 15. All right. So Absalom goes up and he has 200 men with him. See, when the innocent and unknowing are among the divisive, their silence is always perceived as agreement, being used, and you don't even know it. Next thing Absalom does, he has a cold-blooded plan. I mean, it's masterful in the most wicked way possible. All right, so then he goes, verse 12. And Absalom sent for Ahithophel, the Gilonite, David's counselor from his city, even from Gilo, while he offered sacrifices. Oh, okay. It's interesting, right? So see, Absalom, he's like, I'm not quite right if I don't have somebody to roll along with me. I need somebody high up. I need it to look right. I need all the things in place. So he calls for Ahithophel, David's counselor. In Hebrew, the word, in Hebrew, the word counselor is the word ya'atz. It's interesting because it has a root for eighths in Hebrew, and that is a tree or branches, and it means like somebody who is a bones. Sorry. So it means that somebody is the backbone or advisor or counselor in something. See, the elders in Israel were upright like trees and were relied upon for sound advice. See, Ahithophel was David's right-hand man, his backbone. Now, as normal, I always go back and I'm going to grab and bring up some culture, some lineages, so we can kind of be able to run these things down. I feel like we're all getting a lot better at it. We'd be like, oh, that person's David's nephew and this person is this. All right, let's pull this one in. David's counselor, Ahithophel, is a Yehudim. He's from Judah, from Gilon, and he is the grandfather of Bathsheba. Talk about finding some bitter people to rock with you. Talk about that, right? See, Ahithophel not happy. He's not happy at all. Shame brought to his family. His granddaughter is brought in by the king. I mentioned to you, David was 58 We don't know necessarily how old Uriah was, but he was definitely younger than King David, right? So you have this younger woman who is brought, the king takes her, kills her husband. Everybody knows about it. For sure, Ahithophel knows, right? And he seems to be a pretty upstanding guy. He's not offering sacrifices right now. Definitely seems to be an upstanding guy. Let's look at, just to verify, somebody's like, wait, how did you know that Bathsheba was Ahithophel's granddaughter? Let's look at it. Let's look at 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 3. In 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 3, it says, and David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? Okay, so Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Now let's look at 2 Samuel chapter 23, verse 34. And it says, Eliphalet, the son of Ahazbai, the son of Machathite, and Eliam, the son of Ahithophel, the Gileonite. Eliam is Bathsheba's dad, and his father is Ahithophel, the Gileonite. There it is, right there, right in the text. This book is masterful, just masterful. There's no way around it. So Ahithophel was renowned for his wise counsel, for his wisdom. Look at 2 Samuel 16:23. And even wise men can take their side in a divisive and destructive plan. In Ahithophel's case, it was probably prompted because of personal hurt and bitterness because of his granddaughter, right? Pretty simple. So Absalom, being bitter, gathered other bitter people and wounded people and gathered them together to follow his campaign. See, many of us have been caught up by the passion of individuals like Absalom. They can see everything wrong in a system and they have all the answers to make it right. They come as though they are concerned with the collected, but are simply wounded and looking for a position to overtake and make themselves important. Since I'm on the street and I feel prompted, when the whole situation happened with Elijah and him being asked to leave our property, that same individual came to me and asked me would I lead the ark, because he didn't feel like Yosh was a good leader and he saw divisiveness in my home. So let me tell you, people will come to you thinking that they are doing the right thing, and then try to get you first before you say something about them. See, I'm one, I cover. I know people are ignorant, especially unmarried people who have no business advising married people about anything. Come and they say things because they perceive things, and they perceive things at people's lowest points after somebody has lost a sibling and is going through a whole bunch of things, and then brings accusation and things and comes in and works two sides to the middle because they have in their heart and they are wounded and broken individuals. So they'll come to you and say things. I'm telling it not in a way to make anybody upset with any individual. I pray that he rectifies his soul and gets right with Yah before it's everlasting too late. I'm telling you that because me, considering myself to be a reasonably inclined individual, has been in positions where those kind of things have been brought to the table. I've had other individuals who call themselves spiritual say, well, you spiritual and Yosh, your husband, he's not that spiritual. So you gotta do X, Y, and Z. And they come and they put stuff in your ear and your mind to get you to stray away from leadership. But in reality, they want to lead you. They want to use you, and they want to use your gifts, and they want to put you against Yah's anointed, which then puts you against Yah. They don't care about you. They don't care about you. So when people come to you with stuff like, oh, you gifted, you got the gift, you got the anointed. Look, let Yah do what Yah's going to do in his time and in his way. And be like David and be considered wise in all things. Be like David and wait for your time. If you are anointed, if Yah has told you something, you don't have to build it on somebody else. You don't have to build it on the destruction of Saul or anybody else. Yah will put the person he wants in position when he has worked out what he's trying to work out in them. That's the issue. That's the thing. You don't think Samuel saw everything wrong that he knew was wrong with Eli and his sons? And we don't hear Samuel say anything that Yah didn't tell him to say. And Samuel still serves in that temple. Samuel doesn't go off and erect another high place and start offering. It's not until the destruction of of Eli's sons and the stealing of the ark that anything happens where Samuel has to then stand in the gap for the people. He served as a child under that leadership, and he did not waver one way or to the other, and Yah was with him up until the point that he died. You want Yah to be with you? Walk with him and stop worrying about other people. So these type of individuals will convince even those most loyal that they are under the wrong leadership and that they should follow them. See, they're not telling you not to follow nobody. They'll either try to puppet somebody like people try to do with me or other people, or they'll try to jump in that position on their own. You see, all along, they were coveting what they see and believe. That if they were in that position, if they were the one with the power, if they can have everything that the other person has, they would do it better. But a stolen seat still belongs to the one that it was given to. Ahithophel was offering sacrifices. How can you be serving Yah and then somebody come to you and then draw you in cahoots with them on a plan of treason? See, what you guys are going to realize, stop spiritualizing in this fanatical way everything that everybody does. Just because somebody pretends to be, oh, I'm holy, oh, I'm acting like this, and I'm carrying myself like this, and I talk like this, and I sing like this, that somehow that they're please. A person can be right in the midst of doing what you think they're doing for Yah and be pulled straight to hell. I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert because I feel it. Ahithophel kills himself. That's Ahithophel's end. I'm just going to give you that up front because you should know that just in case you never, ever follow the rest. I'm not saying this because I somehow have a bone to pick with people. The end result of Ahithophel is he kills himself. Ahithophel is a direct relationship of Yehoshua and Judas. Directly. We're going to see how these two things together. Ahithophel ends up killing himself. He literally gets his house in order and kills himself because of what he did. He knew he was wrong, but did it with boldness. Gotta watch these people. So he's offering sacrifices with awe in his heart, and the adversary knew it and used this as an occasion to pull him into collusion. We have to make sure that we are ministering with a clean heart, because if we're not, then our hearts can be turned. Our desires can be to worship Yah, but our attitude can be inclining us toward the devil. If you are Ahithophel and have an axe to grind because of something that happened a long time ago, let it go. The very pot you keep stirring is going to bring forth the poison that is going to ruin you. Dead things are in the past, and with death, trying to scramble and handle death, comes disease that can consume and ultimately kill us. Why Yah hasn't done something or why Yah has forgiven someone is his business. As his business. Scripture admonishes us not to fester or ruminate on negativity. We're not even allowed to offer sacrifice or come to Yah if we have aught in our heart toward our brethren. Matthew 5:23 and 24, Romans 12:17-8, and Job 42:8 speak about this. It's in our text. We have to, once again, read the text to make sure that we are in alignment with Yah. We think we're righteous by holding a grudge. Yah says be angry. Definitely. If something makes you angry, be angry. But sin not. Make sure you don't do it in sin. Many people are mistakenly believing that they are serving Yah with a grudge on their heart. It is impossible. Every person who has ever done something to us must be forgiven and placed into the hands of Yah. So we don't have all these hooks in us that the adversary can pull and use to cause us to hurt in Israel or be rendered ineffective. See, everybody acts like they like it at first. You know, we get the person that comes around and all they do is gossip and talk mess about people. You know, the people that are always having a bad day, always see something negative, always have something going on. At first, like, oh, girl, did you? Oh, she's so funny. Oh, she always got something. And then eventually, you know what happens? They get annoying. It's so annoying. Like, dang, are you always unhappy? Do you always have some negative news? Do you always have something negative to say? Are you always the bearer of bad news? Are you always the person that's listening with ear to the street to hear every negative thing? Guess what? We get tired of them. Yeah, new people come along, new drama-filled people, new people who don't have converted hearts for y'all. We'll listen. But after a while, people are like, dang, I wish they really just like get it together. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it. Having ought can be likened to having an unclean spirit that speaks to you and causes you to be triggered, which causes you to pervert the judgment of Yah. The next thing that happens is that Absalom and Ahithophel, they get a trauma bond. And we've talked about this in the past. Like, man, people are bonded to people based upon trauma. Oh, you mad at them? Me too. I sent them an email and they didn't get back to me. Let's be mad together. Let's do this together. Okay. Yeah. You're mad about what happened to my sister. I'm mad about what happened to my sister. And you mad about what happened to your granddaughter. Let's do something about it. Yah's not with him. Yah's done with him. Right. That's the heart. That is the heart there. So Absalom calls for Ahithophel. And it says right here, and the conspiracy was strong, for the people increased continually with Absalom. The word here for conspiracy is the word kesher or kesher, and it literally means to bind. It literally means to bind. It says conspiracy here, but it's the word for to bind something to something else. And it said that it was strong. It was strengthened. A conspiracy in English is an agreement by two or more people to commit a crime at some time in the future. This includes devising a plan secretly with a treacherous or evil end. Careful foresight and scheming, and moving in secret and in an underhanded manner. To conspire means to be in harmony or in one breath or in one spirit. So see how when we get on it and when we are echad, Yah can pour out his spirit and his gifts unto us. But when people in wickedness get on one accord, then they can do things and pour out, have the adversary spirit out and be strengthened to do wickedness. See, we have this messed up. We only think there's one thing operating. No. Yah operates, and then the adversary that one exists in us and then is pulled on by Hasatan is then used. And that spirit is also strong. Same way that Saul got an evil spirit from Yah, right? Same way we can get the spirit of righteousness and the spirit to bear positive fruit. Yah can slick the path. Don't ever forget that. So they were knit together because of a spirit of dysfunction, hurt, pain, and ultimately the adversary, because all those ingredients are a perfect recipe that creates disunity. The conspiracy in the text was said to be strong. This meant that it was sure, secure, and strong. There was nothing to be said to convince Absalom that things could go any way other than the way that he envisioned. He thought, yeah, I told him to do it. He vowed a vow. This is what he's supposed to do. The same way he saw no proper end to the issue with Tamar, but to kill his brother and flee to Geshur. It did not help that he had people behind him that were following, and that following was enough to justify his further actions. That bandwagon spirit. Verse 13, and there came a messenger to David saying, the hearts of the men of Israel are after Absalom. And David said unto all his servants that were with him at Jerusalem, arise and let us flee, for we shall not escape from Absalom. Make speed to depart, lest he overtake us suddenly and bring evil dysfunction upon us and smite the city with the edge of the sword. And the king's servant said unto the king, behold, your servants are ready to do whatsoever my master the king shall appoint. So David's not like, once again, say whatever you want to say against David. He's not like Saul. See, David, it hurt his feelings in Psalm 41, verse 9. He talks about how it hurt his feelings what Ahithophel did. He's like, man, this dude's my counselor. I trusted him. He ate bread at my table. And then he lifted up his heel against me. David's feelings was hurt. See, people think that everybody's gut reaction is anger. People stay angry because they don't want to feel. See, there's other feelings. The Negroes, the so-called Negro, the Hebrews, we have a difficult time operating outside of two emotions. We either happy or mad or angry. There's a whole list of emotions. You got to get an emotion chart like happy, sad, confused, pensive. Like there's other thoughts and there's other feelings to be had. David's feelings, he was hurt. He was appalled. He was befuddled. Like we can feel that too. And that doesn't necessarily always lead to us hating a person or feeling some way. People often, because they operate in that duality, don't understand that it's something that just really hurts your feelings. Not every time everybody expresses emotion are they mad at you. And every time somebody says, I feel like, you got some internal feelings going on and I just feel like I need to address them. Oh, you hate me. You're angry. I must leave. It's like, no, I'm telling you that because you hurt my feelings and I thought we were friends. Not trying to come for you, but when people are unstable, you got to watch it. Unstable people, right? But David was stable. He wasn't like Saul, where he was like, now I will rise up and I will band together an army and we're going to fight against Absalom and Ahithophel. That was not his heart. David said, let's go. We got to go. See, David knew Absalom was ruthless and he valued power over principle. He didn't want the city of Jerusalem to become a battleground. David didn't. He was like, I can't look around. I've lost too much. Can't look around and then watch this also go into destruction. So David's like, we have to flee. They're looking at David like, what? Flee? We have to go. See, Saul was too proud. Saul was convinced that the kingdom was his. Yeah, gave it to me. It's mine. David was like, the kingdom is on loan to me. See, there's one coming mightier than me, he said to his Lord. He said, my Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. He's like, I'm not the king. I'm a placeholder for the king. So if Yah is raising up the next king, or if Yah is chastising me, or Yah is doing something, I'm going to flee and flee into the face of Yah and allow whatever to happen here because I still believe in it all that Yah is in control. And David has some goons, right? His men was like, your servants are ready to do, whatever. He said, whatever you tell us to do, we're ready to do it. Like we will die right now. Even after everything that David has gone through, these men, they're not disillusioned. They don't not know what happened. They don't not know the truth behind the story. They're not people sitting around like, well, if they really knew you, they would. No, they really know him. They really do know him. And they're like, dude, whatever. All you gotta do is say the word. It's done. And David says, and the king went forth and all his household after him. So his household, right? We can take one or two people or a few people who are divided from the house, but the household went after him. And the king left 10 women, which were concubines, to keep the house. It's interesting in this particular portion when it talks about the 10 women that are left behind to keep the house. See, leaving the concubines behind to keep the house was because the job of the concubines, right, to be straightforward, were to care for David's physical needs. David's mind is so far from that place. Not like, I need these concubines too. That was their job. That is what a concubine is. It is for the pleasure of the person who has the concubines. He had wives to do other things as well, but they had their position. The concubines were that's what they were for. They were either that or people that David took care of. David, as he's departing and beginning to enter in his ascent of humility, he doesn't take things that are for him. And we're going to see that over and over again through the next few verses. The concubines stay. You stay here. You keep the house. You guard the house. At least it won't fall, obviously, to ruins. And you guys have somewhere to stay. But you can't come with me because David's not just fleeing from Absalom. He's fleeing to the face of Yah. I can't have you and what you represent near me while I'm trying to get back into right relationship with Yah. Remember that when David sinned with Bathsheba, it says that the eyes of Yah were evil or dysfunctional toward David, which is why you see all the dysfunction. The hedge of protection has been removed. So David is willing to cut back everything in his life, everything that even seems to be a problem. He's willing to let go of the kingdom, let go of everything. He's going to protect his family. Everything has to be let go so that he can stand face to face with Yah and be restored if that's Yah's will. So here in this text, we're going to see something happen over and over again. David is still called the king. Everybody still refers to David as the king because they're still with Yah's anointed. I want you to keep that in mind, even despite Absalom's treachery. David even refers to at one point as Absalom as a king, and they're like, "No, man, you the king." Until Yah says different, you're the king. So we get in verse 17, and the king went forth and all the people after him and tarried in a place that was afar off. So they immediately left from the city and tarried in a place that was afar off. And all his servants passed on beside him. And it literally means near to hand. These people were around him, which meant that the people that were with him, he was willing to die for. They weren't like, everybody didn't scatter and run. No, he gathered them together and he gave them direction on how to even exit out of the city. And all the Harathites and all the Pelethites and all the Gittites, of the Gittites, there were 600 men which came after him from Gath. So remember, David comes out of Gath, 600 of those men came. And these are foreigners. It's often interesting that in the time of trouble, foreigners rallied around David. That is another direct parallel to the Messiah. See, his own people rejected him. His own people drove him out of the city. His own people rejected his coming. And it was the nations who saw the hand of Yah, and the people in the outskirts and the Samaritans that saw the hand of Yah on Yehoshua, the same way as the Harathites and the Pelethites and the Gittites saw the hand of Yah upon David, that they went with him. The Gittites were the foreigners, of course. They were 600 men, and they came up and they passed before the king. Then King David said to Ittai, who's the leader of the Gittites, what are you all doing going with us? Right? Because everybody's leaving and they see David and them leaving, and the city just starts emptying, right? He says, what are you doing going with us? He said, return to your place and abide with the king. He said, go back to the king. It's almost like that moment in be loyal to the throne. Didn't you come to be in this land? Go back. He says, for you are a stranger and also an exile. You're already exiled and you're a stranger. And they say, this is so prophetic. Whereas he says, whereas thou camest but yesterday, should I this day make thee go up and down with us? And they're like, yeah. He answered, he said, as Yahuwah liveth, and as my master the king liveth, surely in what place my master the king shall be, whether death or life, that's where I will be. The foreigner knew better who held the anointing than the ones who were supposed to be even, the ones who were born out of David's own bowels, but also the ones who were supposed to be looking and following the protocol of Yah-led leadership. Okay. He was like, no, David's like, go back to your brethren and mercy and truth be with you. Like, man, I have no hard feelings, but you're already a stranger. And he's like, I'm cleaving to the one who has the anointing. I'm cleaving to the one that Yah has set in place. So it's remarkable. It's remarkable and tragic that his own countrymen are not there with him, but that these foreigners are here. So you have David, and they go on and they pass before the king. And David said to Ittai after that, man, you're righteous, man. Like, that's what he's saying. Go and pass over. And it's interesting because the word here, we're in verse 22. It's the word avar, which is a root word for the word ever, which is where we get our word for Hebrew, which is evrit. And it literally means to cross over. At that moment, they became one with Israel. They became one with the nation. They were no longer seen as strangers. He said, cross over. He says, go evar, like go and cross over and become one of us. It is our connection, our link in Hamashiach that makes us all one in Messiah. This whole divisive thing of like, oh, it's just us, it's just Israel. You have people more down for Israel than Israel. You have people more down for his anointed than his own, who can't see and have their own wicked imaginations. David tells them, cross over from who you used to be to who you are now. Once you link up with us, when he comes to kill us, he gonna kill you just like he kill us if we don't, if Absalom comes. Same way, if we don't get it right as a nation, and we are constantly divided, when Yehoshua comes back to execute judgment on the household, even the stranger in the household will have judgment executed on him if he's sowing discord amongst the nation. The same for the stranger as for the homeborn is this process. And Ittai the Gittite following after David shows how nations will come up and rise up under the righteousness of Yahushua and follow with Israel. And as we walk righteously, as Paul stated before, they will also follow us. Scripture says they will grab hold of us and say, Yah is with you. We're going with you. It has already been prophesied. You can't be slapping people's hands off and saying they can't come if they're willing to follow and willing to live and die as Israel. Can't do it. It says, and Ittai, the Gittite, passed over, and all his men and all the little ones that were with him. The word here for little ones, I think it's a really cool word. It means those who even stumble on their feet. Like they were just like the toddlers, the ones little pitter pattering feet, passed over with him. And all, it says, and all the country wept. With a loud voice, and all the people passed over. The king himself passed over the brook Kidron, and all the people passed over toward the way of the wilderness. That's the word that we were talking about before. So in Psalm 55, all those Psalms I gave you, I read through them because I wanted David to talk. It's interesting that Yah let certain people speak. David is able to tell how he feels. David was frustrated. David was angry. David was hurt. He was in pain. He was scared. Can you imagine David being scared? He wasn't just scared for himself. He was scared for all those people who were going to be under the sword of Absalom because of Absalom's hate for David. He feared for them. And he said a trembling came upon him and it overwhelmed him. Can you imagine that of King David? See, when we operate outside of Yah's hedge of protection, or when we're placed outside of Yah's hedge of protection for chastisement, it is a scary place. That is why we cannot devour each other when Yah is trying to get to the heart of a person. It's very important that we don't, because it's scary being, at the feet of the living ill. It's a very, very terrifying process. We don't know if we're going to make it out. We don't know if we're going to be restored. We don't know if everything that's happened to us was Yah's will and it was supposed to happen, or if this was just another test. We don't know. We are scared, confused, hurt, and without a hope in the world. I remember writing during that whole time when all that stuff was going on, and I'm in what is the name of the poetry book? Her Peace of Mind. And I wrote about Yah restoring, just as David had, the joy of my salvation. Like, what did I do? Especially when there's a lot of things I have been broken about, where I see imperfection in myself. But then when people see imperfection and then stomp because of what they perceive, when you are really, really seeking Yah, that is very painful. And we do that to each other a lot, thinking that we are doing Yah's will. What's getting ready to happen next with David, it really pricks my heart in a way, not just because of my personal feelings or things that I've gone through or things that I've experienced people going through, but it's the weight and the heaviness of what is happening right now. So David talks about his wandering afar off and to remain in the wilderness in Psalm 55, specifically verses 4 and 8. But David puts his trust in Yahuwah. And he says, Yah has to be a shield. Like, he's just like, I can't do it. I can't fight my own might. I realize that what's happening is beyond me. And it says that they go up and they cried in a loud voice. See, this is another thing with those cultural nuggets where we try to hold things in. We remember when it said that David was angry when what happened with Tamar, right? And it said that it was like the idea of like the burning in your throat that causes like tears to come out of your eyes. But that's like, we normally feel like that when we're trying like not to be overtaken by the emotion that's happening. Well, in this very moment, Yah brings everything back. Yah puts the weight of everything that's happened. You think David just walked out because he's like, oh, Absalom's mad, but everything else is cool. He's feeling the weight of everything that he's done, of everything that he's been through. He's lost a child. His daughter has been overtaken by her brother. Amnon is dead. Absalom hates him. The nation has turned against him. We haven't heard Yah speak once. It's a very, 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 very dark and heavy time right now. If you want to talk about depression, like right here, when you hear David and he writes from a low place, like this is just one example of how you can get into that low place And so it says that they came out and they wept with a loud voice. The word here for wept is the word baka, and it means to weep or to bewail. It literally means that, like, vocalize weeping and wailing. And it means to cry from the inside, from the pit of one's pain. And it's often triggered by an outside impulse. It means that there's something here, and Yah has now, or time and chance that happens to everyone, has pressed up against us, and it's caused us, all that we've been holding, to literally spring forth. See, we want to remain unhealed, and we like to remain broken, and we want to hold things in. And what Yah has done is pressed or pricked or punctured the cloud of, that has surrounded us and caused literally the rain of our tears to come forth. It means to literally break into tears. And the picture means to take one's hands and place them over the eyes and to weep. And the palms over the hands act like literally cups, so many tears that they're literally poured out. And it's like and I know this is going to sound really convoluted, but it's not meant to sound that way. It's the blessing of the tears. It's the blessing that comes when we pour out and we're able to heal. And those tears are literally in the palms of our hands like cups. And they are the offering of a broken heart to be handed to Yahuwah. He's literally crying and like crying. This is David. Don't forget, this is the king, the one that stood before Goliath, the one who has fought many of battles, and he is broken. He is at his lowest in this very moment. We thought he was at his lowest before. This is that moment when he is broken, a broken spirit and a contrite heart. He is pouring forth. And this was not a silent cry, but a cry with a loud voice. He didn't turn away and go hide in a corner to be tough before Israel. He shows them also emotion and what it means to be broken. So David goes in verse 28, he goes back into the wilderness. David goes back into the wilderness. Now we know David had an extensive period in the wilderness as he ran from Saul. The Hebrew word for wilderness is midbar. And the wilderness is a place of measuring and cleansing. Need, right, means to measure. And what are we being measured up against when we go into the wilderness, or when we go into a quiet place where Yah can speak to us? Or being measured up against his standard, right? Being put up against it so we can see where we are and where we have to go to be in alignment and circumspect to him. Second part of that is bar. Bar is root bet resh. It's like the heads of the grain. When the heads of the grain were cut, the portion that was burned was then strained and turned into potash, and that potash was mixed with fat. And that fat was used to make soap. And that is how one is cleansed. So the wilderness is a place of measuring and cleansing. The wilderness is a place where Israel received the standard of Yahuwah, and where they were caused, to practice the ordinance of Torah before they entered into the promised land. If ever we forget the training, or if ever we get away from the that place of knowing how to act and knowing how to judge and knowing how to operate according to Torah and Yah's law, we are given the prescription of going back to the basics. And a lot of that is going back into the wilderness process. Yeah, we looked at the number before, 40. 40 is the amount of time that the Israelites were in the wilderness, where they learned Yah's ordinances and his law, statutes, and commandments. 40 days and 40 nights were the amount of time given when Yah judged and cleansed the earth. So this is not something that has just come up with haphazardly. This is what Yah does. We go through these periods of 40s or wildernesses or trials or cleansings or measurings so that we can be put back on the right path to walk before Yah. It is in the wilderness that we are called to practice simplicity and learn to depend on Yah. The wilderness is a place where the noise is quieted, and we are supposed to reconnect and rededicate our lives to Yahuwah. It is in the wilderness that we are reacquainted with what really matters and are restored and fortified, or left destitute and destroyed. The wilderness is a place of perfecting and trial. Yah took David back to a familiar place. Those who went up with David didn't go because they were ignorant of David's humanity or his sins or his shortcomings. They went up because they were willing to stand with him and to participate in the restoration process. They trusted Yah was going to do what he had done for so many in times before. The next part is so beautiful. The priests come. So just when you feel like all is lost, right? Verse 24, and lo, Zadok and all the Levites are with him, bearing the ark of the covenant of Elohim. And they set down the ark of Elohim, and Abiathar went up until all the people had done passing out of the city. I have this, I guess I won't call it necessarily infatuation, but it's something that is sticking in my mind for a while. I don't know if you ever watched karate movies, but this idea of the Shaolin Temple. And most people think of the priests as just like these holy people, you know, European priests. But the monks in Eastern culture, which would have been similar to our priests in Hebrew culture, were skilled men. They were skilled men. And they also had with them, obviously, the protection of Yah. And only a crazy person, obviously, we saw it with Dauid, the Edomite, would go up and kill a priest or a monk. And so imagine the scene where they're leaving out of Jerusalem, and they're getting ready to pass over the brook Kidron. And all the priests and their sons come and make a line or a wall and bring the ark and offer them safe passage out of the city. It's one of the most amazing pictures ever. And it's obviously another picture of Yehoshua, right? As the priest giving us passage to cross over, right? He's going before us. They stand and they create a wall, literally putting themselves in a position to die for them as they pass over. And they wait there until all the people had done passing out of the city. And so then the king turns to Zadok and he says, carry back the ark of Elohim into the city. He says, if I shall find favor in the eyes of Yahuwah, he'll bring me again and show me both it. And here it says he, because there's no it in Hebrew. So he says, show me both he, meaning the ark, and his habitation. But if he thus say, I have no delight in thee, behold, here I am. Let him do to me as seemed good unto him. See, David didn't see leaving the land as Absalom's doing. David's wiser than that. He knew that nothing like this could happen without Yahuwah allowing it to come to pass. David said in verse 25 that if he finds grace, that he is to be brought back into the sight of Yah. That means like grace means to be in the house. Outside of grace means to be outside. Then he'll know it's Yah. Literally almost the same exact thing that it seems like Absalom had going on, right? He said, if it seems good to Yah and he brings me back, then I'll know. When he sinned greatly before the eyes of Yahuwah, there seemed to be a lifting of the hedge of protection. We don't see Yahuwah speaking, but everybody doing and acting on their own accord. David, as in the previous chapter, does not have the ability or doesn't seem to have called on Yah as he did before. Yah doesn't seem to be nearby, and evil seems to be ever present. But in this time of trial, David knows that his only defense is to continue to worship. So then David says to Zadok the priest, art thou a seer? He's like, can't you see? You can perceive things, right? Yah has given you foresight. He said, return to the city in shalom. Don't make an uprising. And your two sons with you, Ahimaaz, thy son, and Jonathan, the son of Abiathar. And see, I will tarry in the plain of the wilderness. He said, I'm going to wait on Yah and let him do what he is doing by putting me into this space of measuring and cleansing until there come word from you to certify me. So until you bring word to me. Zadok, therefore, and Abiathar carried the ark of Elohim again to Jerusalem, and they tarried there. And David, this is the part that gets me. And David went up by the ascent of the Mount Olivet, Mount of Olives, and wept as he went up, and had his head covered. So this is like mourning. This is like what Tamar did when Absalom had stripped her of her virginity and took her will to choose. He's finally in a place where he can let it all out. And he's mourning before Yah. He feels now what the people have felt. He feels disconnected. He feels what his daughter has felt. He feels what his sin has done. The weight of it is upon him, and it has humbled him. And so in his humility and his shame, he covers his head and he went barefoot. And all the people that were with him, and every man that was with him, every man his head. So the men covered their heads too. And they went up weeping as they went. Once again, the same word for to literally bewail. We're going to stop here. I'm going to show you this New Testament parallel because it's super important. And there's only a couple more verses and we're done. Yehoshua and the Mount of Olives. The Mount of Olives is Har Hazeitim. Okay, it's the mountain of olives. And the 2-letter root for olive, for the word olive is Zayin Tav. It literally means the harvest for the sign. Yah literally harvests David to create a sign or a marker for Hamashiach. See, we think in one dimension, but Yah uses this instance to literally harvest David to produce a sign that will be seen in Hamashiach. The olive tree is harvested, and its oil, after it's crushed, right, is used as an anointing oil for those who are kings and priests, and also a medicinal ointment. David ascends up the Mount of Olives, seeking healing and to worship and to be cleansed and restored after he has been crushed and poured out. And he wept and cried before Yahuwah. In Luke chapter 19, let's go there, verse 41. So let's start there. Luke 19. It says, and when he was come near, this is talking about Yehoshua, he beheld the city, this is Jerusalem, and wept over it. So he had gone up and he ascended onto the Mount of Olives, and when he came near, right, he could see the whole city. And he's saying, if thou had known, even you, at least in this your day, the things which belong unto your peace. But now they are hid from your eyes. For the days shall come upon you, prophesying over Jerusalem, that your enemies shall cast a trench about thee and compass thee around and keep thee in on every side, and shall lay thee even unto the ground, and thy children with thee, and they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation. There are people still right now rejecting Hamashiach, even after the destruction of our people, even after our disenfranchisement, even after us being in the land of our captivity, even after hearing this. He said, the destruction that came upon us, what sent us into captivity was we did not know the time of Yah's visitation. Yehoshua is the glory of Yah, the glory, the kavod, right? I'm gonna give you something that's a little scientific, just bear with me. Kavod means weight, right? Spirit, that which is unseen, has no weight. We can't see it or feel it. So Yah then takes the same thing that he is, puts it into the flesh, which is visible, which is weighty, and allows us to see it. So you can take a atom, right? And the same atom can appear different ways. Only thing that's different is the weight on it is changed. You can take Yah, who is one, and he can manifest himself in a different way, just changing the appearance of himself, putting it into flesh so that you could see him. That was our visitation. Because of our visitation being missed, because we didn't know it, destruction came. Our captivity and our redemption is literally tied to understanding who Hamashiach is. We can't be afraid of that. We cannot. We should be afraid of us following leaders and people online teaching and all that. Just fear that. Don't fear Yah's word. Fear Yah. Fear Yah and lean into him. Let me tell you why this is interesting. This is not haphazard. In Ezekiel chapter 11, 23, remember Ezekiel's after David. Ezekiel's after David. Yah puts the same picture, the same moment into Ezekiel's mouth regarding what has happened. And David connects it and Ezekiel confirms it and Yeshua manifests it. Ezekiel chapter 3, it's prophesied that Yahushua would go up on that same mountain. Verse 23, and the glory of Yahuwah went up from the midst of the city and stood upon the mountain which is on the east side of the city. Afterwards, the Spirit took me up and brought me in a vision by the Spirit of Yah into Chaldea, to them of the captivity. Crazy, right? He has that vision. He goes up on the mountain. He doesn't say just anything. He says, and the glory, the weight, that thing that is weighty of Yahuwah went up from the midst of the city and stood. It's really Yamod, to stand. People with feet stand. And he stood upon the mountain, which is on the east side of the city. Literally the same exact thing that happens in Luke chapter 19, verse 41. Anybody telling you that somebody else wrote the New Testament is giving way too much credit to some guy named Macion or some European or some defective Jewish person. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. He comes, the designated one comes so that he can be anointed to bring healing to the nation. On Yahushua's ascent up to Mount Olive, he turns and looks at Jerusalem and weeps over the city. And that's where he talks about, if you had only known your visitation. After the Messiah is pressed and poured out for the nation of Israel as a balm of healing, he returns to the same mountain and makes his ascent in the cloud. Let's go to Acts chapter 1, verse 12. Acts chapter 1, verse 12. And if he can ascend down, go up from the city and ascend down on the mountain in Ezekiel, then how can he not do the same thing in Acts? Acts chapter 1, verse 12. Then returned they unto Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet, which is from Jerusalem a Sabbath day's journey. If you go back to verse 11, and it says, right here, verse 10, it says, and while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, two men stood by them in white apparel, which also said, ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into Shamayim? This is Yahushua, which is taken up from you into Shamayim. The same Yahushua that is taken up from you into Shamayim shall come in like manner, sin on Mount Olives, and ye have seen him as you have seen him go into Shamayim. Then returned they unto Jerusalem from the mount called Olivet, which is from Jerusalem, a Sabbath day's journey. See that? David's picture in distress was still used to the glory of Yahuwah. Let us be sure to remember that even in our distress, Yahuwah still gets the glory. All right, let's go back to 2 Samuel chapter 15 and see how David, in the wisdom given to him by Yahuwah, is able to somehow manage through all the stuff that's happening right now. All right, let's go right about verse 30 is where we were. So, and David went up by the ascent of Mount Olivet and wept as he went up and had his head covered, and he went barefoot, and all the people that was with him covered every man his head, and they went up weeping as they went up. And one told David, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And David said, O Yahuwah, I pray thee, turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness. And it came to pass that when David was come to the top of the mount where he worshiped Yah, behold, Hushai the Archite came to meet him with his coat rent and earth upon his head. Let me just keep reading it through, and then I'll go back to that where he worshiped, because unto whom David said, if thou passes on with me, then thou shalt be a burden unto me. David's like, don't even worry about it. Don't come with me. Like, just go back. But if thou return to the city, he's like, let me think about this. Unto Absalom, I will be thy, he said, but if I return to the city and say unto Absalom, I will be thy servant. So he's telling him, O king, and I have been thy father's, as I have been thy father's servant hitherto, so will I now also be thy servant. Then mayest thou for me defeat the counsel of Ahithophel. It was like Yah heard his prayer, right? When he prayed it. He's like, oh, you have, yeah, please confuse the counsel of Ahithophel. And then here comes Hushai, and he's like, man, go back to the city. Go and tell Absalom you've turned on me and serve him. But you gotta run interference because Ahithophel, man, he's too wise. Even in his wicked heart, the dude is smart and he understands and he knows me. He's gonna know how to overtake me. He spent too much time with me. He's been here. I need you to go do something about it. So Yah provides essentially a person to go in and run interference. And so and he tells him, he says, and also you have Zadok and Abiathar, the priest there, right? Like, dude, you have people there. They're with me too. Therefore it shall be that what things soever that thou shalt hear of the king's house, go tell it to Zadok and Abiathar, the priest. David hasn't given up. He doesn't give up. And he says, behold, they have there with them their two sons, Ahimaaz, Zadok's son, and Jonathan, Abiathar's son. And by them you shall send unto me everything that you can hear. They'll let me know. So Hushai, David's friend, it's always a faithful friend, right? Came into the city, and Absalom came into Jerusalem. It's like they made it out right in time. Absalom was coming. He knew he was coming. So you have Hushai, who is a friend of David. And you have a friend in a time of distress, which is such a beautiful thing. So often, many people enter into distressing times with nobody to stand by them, nobody to pray, nobody to run interference. He has people there, but Hushai was literally willing to stand in the gap, literally stand side by side with Absalom, but to help David know what was happening so that he could protect the people and protect those still remaining with him. Now let's go back to this worship. How many people struggle with worshiping when they're under chastisement? Just in case nobody else raised their hand. You see, our worship doesn't go to another. If we hold back our worship, then we are denying Yah what is rightfully his. David does not say, oh, let me be angry with him, or why have you? No, he worships because he knows in all things that Yah does, in all of his judgment, in all of his execution, he is just and right always. The question then is, when will we get to a place where we will worship Yahuwah even in our season of trial? When will we worship him in our chastisement? When we worship him, when we worship before him, even in our humiliating and humbling moments, will we run and hide? Or will we stand firm and show forth the glory of Yah, not knowing, or maybe not even understanding that what he's doing is using the pressing of our moment to bring about other people's faith and restoration in him, knowing that when they are persecuted and when they come under trials and when they have to stand and be chastised for their own sins and shortcomings, that Yahuwah has not left them. Why, like the adversary, do we want everybody who goes through something to run and hide? See, because the adversary hates restoration. It's something that he can't have, something that has been removed from him. So he wants anybody who shows any sign of restoration or being rebuilt to be stripped away from Israel, so that Israel feels like their sin and their lowest point is where they have to stay. And that's the devil's playing ground. Don't let anybody cause you to stay and wallow in your sin, wallow in your filthiness, or be angry and turn your back on Yah during the chastisement. Stand in it and worship, knowing that our lack of worship will lead to our destruction. David stands and David is used, and Hamashiach paints that same picture of weeping over Jerusalem. See, when you don't know the end story, you will condemn or you will turn your back on, not knowing that Yah is doing something so much greater than the things that you even saw in the beginning. Sometimes it takes the stirring of the eagle's nest and the tearing down of men's ideas about people so that Yah can get the glory. Because sometimes we erect such high structures for people that they block out Yah's light. Yah tears them down and uses those pieces to build a foundation for his righteousness to be built upon. I hope that this encouraged you. I hope that you stuck it through. If you didn't, I know it was long. Break it up into parts, however you have to do it, but really hear what Yah is saying to our nation about unity and about standing with those that Yah is with and waiting to see the final outcome. And most importantly, fixing our eyes on Yah first. Don't let this Pandora's box of YouTube and internet draw you and toss you to and fro. If ever the road seems rocky, follow Yah. Fix your eyes on him. Take your eyes off of everybody else. Close your ears to everything else and follow Yah, and he will always lead you in the path of righteousness. Shabbat shalom. I just thought about it. I was like, Shabbat shalom. Two things. Patreon. We're going to post the notes from today. I know there were a lot of verses. Like I said, a lot of moving parts. I don't know if they'll be posted today, but they'll be on Patreon. It'll be public, so you can go over there and grab those notes. And so you can work back through this information on your own. The second thing is, if you want to donate, support, or just send a note and send a prayer. It doesn't always have to be money. Everybody's always asking people for things. It's not the point here. We do the work because Yah allows it. There are people who are faithful. Thank you guys who give. I'm getting a lot better. I'm going to be sending out individual letters and emails to people who have supported the work of Royal Roots and her Royal Roots. We truly appreciate you because it is what allows everything to happen. There's so many things happening all the time, and there's so many people that are working with this group to bring information to you all. So we really want to thank you guys, but send something, send an email, send an encouragement. And if you would like to send monetary donation, you can do so through the Her Royal Roots website. If you use the Royal Roots website, it all goes to the same place, or Cash App, which is in the description below. We truly appreciate each and every one of you, and hope that as Yah is doing a restoration process and continuing to awaken and fortify and unify his people, that we can all do this as one body, and your support is greatly appreciated. Okay, so this time really, Shabbat Shalom.